preoccupied and didn't have everything ready to go. I think we want to look at Nahum and what he has to say, and you're right. If you've got notes there, we have looked at chapters 1 and 2 before. But we're not going to look at 1 or 2, we're going to look at 3. And finish the book as we have and are patiently covering some of the minor prophets, working through and coming to understand. The more I learned, the preoccupation was just taking time to thank God for putting up with me through these years. We spoke in class of, Jacob did, of some of the mistakes that we've made and some of the things that we've done that can embarrass you even by yourself. Most often, that happens to me driving down the road by myself, that I look back on my life and am embarrassed at the poor response to my God by me, and how He has continued to love and continued to encourage. And now maybe I've matured to the point where I can comfortably feel like I am what His expectations are of me. There's no arrogance in that, for I know that arrogance is on the road to destruction. Wherefore let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. 1 Corinthians 10:12. So I'm not going to imagine with any arrogance. I'm going to be grateful for today. And look at that. I love studying these Old Testament prophets. They throw so many applications to the world I live in today that I just think it's just phenomenal. This prophet reminds me of Proverbs 14 and verse 34. Righteousness exalteth a nation, sin is a reproach to any people. If righteousness exalteth a nation, I start whittling that down, and I learn that righteousness exalteth a state, and sin is a reproach to any people. Righteousness exalteth a county, and sin is a reproach to any people. Righteousness exalteth a family, and sin is a reproach to any people. Righteousness exalteth a person, and sin is a reproach to any people. I worked it all the way down to me. So what you want of me, Lord? I would like for you to be righteous. And sometimes that strains our thinking because we're not exactly certain what the definition of righteous is. Righteous, transliterated, is right in the sight of God. God wants me to be right with Him. He wants a relationship with me. He wants a relationship with you. Now, when somebody that high up wants a relationship with you, that's pretty special. I don't even imagine that Trump has the time to mess with me. And I can back it up. I didn't imagine Bush had the time to mess with me. I didn't imagine Clinton had the time or interest in me. I mean, I say something every now and then that's got a political orientation, never from this pulpit. And I will say then, whoever the president is, but he hasn't called me yet for my opinion. I'm not expecting that call. The Lord of the whole universe wants a personal relationship with me. And I say, wow. I have never been honored more highly than when He wants a relationship with me. Neither have you, friend. You've never been honored more highly. You will never be honored more highly than that He says He wants a relationship with you. Okay, Lord. You've convinced me. You've convinced me of your love. You've convinced me of your concern. You've convinced me that you have made the step toward me. Now will I make a return step? And that's where it is. That's where it always is. Will you make a return step? I look at Nahum. There was a nation that was hated of all because of their meanness and their cruelty and their strength. You can make a political application if you choose to. I won't. But it's apropos. And it was Assyria, because Assyria not only whipped people, they whipped them cruelly. They'd take your nation captive, and they would stick fish hooks in your nose or in your ears and make you walk back. If you fell, that was on you. They didn't care. They were cruel, horrible, cruel. What do you think you and I are saying? We're saying, if there's a God in heaven, why is He allowing Assyria to be a world power? And maybe some of us have said that to the degree that we decided that there wasn't a God in heaven. But we were wrong. And we're wrong today if we've made the decision there isn't a God in heaven. For there is a God in heaven. And there is a God in heaven. Listen to 2 Peter 3:9. The Lord is not slack concerning His promises, as some men count slackness, but He is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish. I'm wanting God to fix my negatives. You know, I'll give Him an hour or maybe a day. And if I'm really tough, I'll give Him a week. But He needs to get my negative fixed. What if that's during a period of time when God is being long-suffering to others? And my hour, day, week turns into years. He's being long-suffering to us. That's what is happening with Assyria. God is being long-suffering. See, I'm wanting Him to be long-suffering to me. But I'm not necessarily worried about you. Because if fixing my problem reflects a lack of long-suffering to you, oh well. And we know that that's a horrible attitude on our part. So we trust God to be long-suffering, not only to us, but also to others. And that may mean that my problem is going to be acute longer than I wanted it to be so. But no, Lord, I want long-suffering for all of us. That's hard to say. But when I work myself into a corner, that's what I want. And I realize that God resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble. James 4:6. God resisteth the proud. Ooh, I gotta not feel too much about me. I got to get me in perspective, because when God works against me, I got big problems. When man or circumstances work against me, I haven't got big problems, I got little problems. But when God works against me, I got big problems. God resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble. Ooh, I want grace way worse than I want resistance from God. I've learned another life principle. Another life principle. I mustn't think, I find it easier if I will always compare me with Jesus instead of other people. I may have corrected myself to the point that there are other people that I can compare myself with and come out on the long end of the stick. But if I always compare me with Jesus, I will come up wanting. I want to grow more. I want more godliness for myself, more righteousness for myself, right in the sight of God. There's some principles in Nahum that I think are just unbelievably devastating. Starts out in 1:1, and he speaks of the burden. I think this is worth hearing. You see, old Nahum's got but one sermon. One sermon. Took him 3 chapters to get it said, but he had one sermon. Nineveh will fall soon. Nineveh will fall. Now, Nineveh's the capital of Assyria. And when they lose their capital, they've lost their strength. And he's one sermon. But he calls it a burden to preach that sermon. You know, some of us need to look to Nahum because we have a burden also, not preaching the destruction of Nineveh, but preaching the destruction of the ungodly and those that will not accept the pardon and the remission of their sins. So what have we done? We've gone as mute as the deaf man. We mustn't do that. We have a message that the world needs to hear. The world's responsibility is what they do with it. But we have a message the world needs to hear. And we mustn't be mute. We mustn't be afraid to tell a burdensome message. And it's burdensome because we have to explain to people that they're going to be lost without a proper response to Jesus. Well, they could not like me if I say that. The book of Revelation, the book of Ezekiel, both speak of the little bittersweet book. Well, what do you mean the little bittersweet book? It's sweet when you're accepting it for you. It's ice cream, chocolate cake, and anything else you can think of when you're accepting it for you. When does the same book become bitter? When you try to explain it to people you love and they have no interest in it. He's talking about the message of God. That's the little bittersweet book. Through Ezekiel, through John in the Revelation. Wow. Through Nahum. Nahum's message, Nahum, you're too negative. He said, there ain't anything positive to say about you folk. I'm not too negative. You are too negative. And I've got to preach about where you are and what you're doing because my God sent me to preach that sermon. Oh, so you're just doing your job, Nahum. Mm-hmm. I'm doing what my God asked me to do, and I don't care how heavy it is. I insist on toting the load. Ooh, what a nice spirit in you and me. I don't care how heavy the load is. I insist on toting the load. There's the burden, but I find it real interesting in verse 7 because he talks about mercy for those who trust him, who are a part of Assyria when it's destroyed. Did we hear that? Mercy for those who trust him, even if they're a part of the destruction of Assyria. And some of us were. We'd been carried off into Assyrian captivity, 722 BC. That's historical. That's not only Bible. And some of us were in Assyria, and they were trying to amalgamate us and therefore erode our value system. But he says in verse 7, the Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he that knoweth them that trust in him. I've always thought it was interesting because we speak of people, and she's really a good lady. How on earth do you define good? He's really a good kid. How do you define good? The Lord's good. If he or she isn't like the Lord, he or she isn't good. If you're trying to be explicit, say he or she has good manners. He or she does well at school. He or she has a moral standard. But they're not good till they're godly. That is the definition of good. The same as righteousness. You want to know good? Take a deep, long look at Jesus. For there is good, even in the face of all kinds of bad. We spend a lot of time talking about the bad that's in our world. There's nothing about that that keeps you and me from being good. I can, yet for my goal, want to be like Jesus. The definition of good. But look what he says. In the time of trouble, verse 7. Those that find their refuge in their God. That's important. And we could go on trying to pull all of this together, but we've looked at it and we're going to go all the way to the 3rd chapter. And basically what he's going to say in Nahum 3 is the retribution is for sin. Where do we hear that? Because we say things like, how can a good God punish people? That reflects that you've not read enough Bible to pop a wet paper bag. Good God punishes sin. It doesn't make any difference how I live, how I act, what I do. It makes a difference. That I learn to define good, and then I put myself to the task of being good. This is retribution for sin. God says, here I come, Nineveh. Here I come. And I find it awfully interesting that at the end of verse 19, every commentator that I read wrote 2 words to end up the chapter and the book. And the 2 words are, at last. At last. Finally, God showed his righteousness by destroying Nineveh, by destroying the power of Assyria. Finally, God showed his righteousness. Dearly beloved, Romans 12:19 through 21, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him, and if he thirst, give him to drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. What did Jesus do from the cross? He overcame evil with good. Amen. What did God do with the flood? He overcame evil with good. What did God do? Work all the way through your Old Testament. With the Passover, He destroyed the firstborn of every family that wouldn't trust Him enough to do what He told them to do. God has given us the directives. We know what we want, whether we've tried to be it or not. We know what He wants. Mm-hmm. Look at 3, chapter 1. 3, verse 1. Woe to the bloody city. How do you think Nahum's accepted? It is full of lies and robbery. Now that's King James, but if you look in 2:12, the tear in pieces, speaking of the lion tearing in pieces, that's the word that's used there for robbery. And that's what Assyria was. Assyria had just eliminated conscience, and they tore in pieces all people. Woe to the bloody city, is full of lies and tearing up of everything. The prey departeth not. Continuous warfare, continuous turmoil. I mean, it's hard. And I always got tickled when I was young how old preachers preached all kinds of deals like the sky's falling. But now as an old preacher, I look around the world I live in and I'm wondering if the sky isn't falling. I don't know if that's being an old preacher or if maybe I now see the sky a little closer and a little clearer. The prey departeth not, he says. And then he explains the battle. And what you need here is don't work on literal. Work on letting your imagination get the picture. You're in a town, Nineveh. You have 100-foot walls and width, thickness that says we can have a chariot race 3 chariots wide. We got the wall. We don't need God. We got walls that are thick and tall. We don't need God. There's 120 sentry posts around the city. We got the sentries. We don't need God. There's a 60-foot wide moat all the way around the city that's 120 feet deep. We don't need God. We are impregnable. Oh, God loves it when people say things like that. That's what they said on the Titanic. Maiden voyage. Boom. That's what we see Nineveh saying. They are impregnable. You're not going to get us. God said, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Listen, here comes the enemy. Babylon and the Medes, here they come. The noise of a whip. They're coming at you quickly. And the noise of the rattling of the wheels. And you're hearing the chariots. And the prancing horses. And the horses are loving it because you're releasing their bridle and they can run. And of the jumping chariots, they're bouncing as they're coming at us. The horseman lifteth up both the bright sword and the glittering spear. They're armed, and there is a multitude of slain. Multitude of slain, and a great number of carcasses, and there is none end of the corpses. They stumble upon the... We can't walk with stumbling over dead people. Here comes Babylon and the Medes. And he describes the fight. Why? Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot. He speaks of Rome as the harlot in Revelation. He speaks of Nineveh, the Assyrian, as the harlot under Nahum. Ooh, same sermon though. Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot. Sin is a reproach to any people, and God is vindicating himself. The mistress of witchcraft. You know, the mistress is intended to seduce. And Nineveh seduced in lots of ways, you know. One was, you know, if the multitude's doing it, can't be wrong, peer pressure. Nineveh was the multitude and peer pressure. Number two, we're going to hurt you. If you're not enticed by the mistress, Nineveh will hurt you. And actually, it's such a place of commerce and business that you're going to struggle never doing business with Nineveh, another seductive thing. What he's talking about here. Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts that selleth nations through her whoredom. She convinces whole nation to want to be an ally, and families through her witchcrafts. Behold, underline this, I am against thee. I don't care who all's for you. I don't care who's in your corner. When God gets out of your corner, you're going to get hurt, friend. When God gets out of your corner, you're going to get hurt. Ooh. Because I am against thee. He said, you're not dealing with these little nations now, Nineveh. You're dealing with me. You've reached all the way to the big brother. I'm against you, saith the Lord of hosts. And I will discover thy skirts upon thy... I'm going to expose you. And I will show the nations thy nakedness. I'm going to expose you. And the kingdoms thy shame. I'm going to expose you and you'll be shamed. And I will cast abominable filth upon you. Wow. And make thee vile. And will set thee as a gazing stock for the whole world. The whole world's going to see you in your nakedness and in your seductiveness. The world will see you. Righteousness will be vindicated. And it shall come to pass that all they that look upon thee shall run away from thee. Now, people have been running to her. Now they're running away. And say, Nineveh is laid waste. There's the subject. I underline that because that's the subject. Anybody going to cry about it? Nope, nobody to cry. That's not a very good thing. At your death, there's nobody to cry. Nobody cares. Good riddance for bad rubbish. Oh. Who will bemoan her? Whence shall I seek comfort? Where do I go get people to mourn at your funeral? Nineveh. The whole world had suffered at her hands, and the whole world was pleased. No one to console her. But he goes on, art thou better than the populous No? No was a town. You can read about No in Jeremiah 46. It was a town. It was a highly populated town. And you know who'd whip No? Assyria. Assyria would whip No. And so he's got an excellent illustration here. Art thou better than the populous No that was situate among the rivers, that had the waters round about it, whose rampart was the sea, and her wall was from the sea? She had all the protection. And what'd you do, Nineveh? You whipped her. I'm comparing you, Nineveh, to No. Oh, we're going to get whipped too. Ethiopia and Egypt were her strength. And it was, next word, King James, is infinite. Put and Leuben were her helpers. Yet was she carried away. That's underlined, put in parentheses. She went into captivity. Her young children also were dashed in pieces at the top of the street. That's the way Nineveh did things. beat the babies to death up at the top of the street so everybody can see it. God said, I've let you go as far as I'm going to let you go, Nineveh. Turn out the lights. The party's over. And they cast lots for her honorable men, and all her great men were bound in chains. Thou also shalt be drunken. Thou shalt be hid. Thou also shalt seek strength because of the enemy, but you'll find no recovery. No recovery is what he's talking about. All thy strongholds shall be like fig trees. Now this is hilarious to me. He's drawing another picture. And what he's saying is all your resources, Nineveh, are unable to save you. All your resources are unable to save you. All thy strongholds shall be like fig trees with the first ripe figs. Now it's coming into spring, and the figs are coming out, and all of us are kind of wanting the first figs because we hadn't had any figs all winter. And he's saying, Nineveh, you're going to be devoured like the first ripe figs. We're all wanting to stand there to get the first ripe fig. He said, there's you, Nineveh. If they be shaken, they shall even fall into the mouth of the eater. You shake the tree to get the first ripe fig. It's not even going to hit the ground. It's going into the mouth of the eater. Not in the hand, the mouth of the eater. The reason you're going to lose severely, I like this. I don't think of it as a sexist statement, but he said, because you fight like girls. That's what he said. You fight like girls. Because thy people in the midst of thee are women. The gates of thy land shall be set wide open. Now that's the way they generally whip people, was opening their gates so their team could get in. He said, I, God, am going to open your gates. Oh, but Lord, we got crossbars that'll keep them from opening. He said, watch your gates. And when I open your gates, you'll know who it is. He said, the gates of the land shall be set wide open unto thine enemies. The fire shall devour the bars. I am going to devour the bars that have been protecting you and open the gates. Come on, enemy. Draw thee waters for the siege. He said, prepare yourself. It's futile, but get after it. Prepare yourself. Draw thee waters for the siege. Fortify thy stronghold. Go into the clay and tread the mortar. Make strong the brick kiln. Fix your walls. Repair your walls. Do everything you need to do. Get plenty of water. Make sure the moat's full. There shall the fire devour thee. That's the first Holocaust, unless Sodom and Gomorrah was. The sword shall cut thee off. It shall eat thee up like the cankerworm. Make thyself many as the cankerworm. Make thyself many as the locust. The cankerworm is a stage of the locust, and what it did was it ate all the green. And he said, I'm bringing them in. They're going to take care of it, all of it. Thou hast multiplied thy merchants. It was a crossroads. And they had lots of allies. Multiply thy merchants. Above the stars of heaven, the cankerworm will spoil and run away. He's going to get you and then leave. Thy crowned, that's their high rank, are as the locusts, they're many. And thy captains as the great grasshoppers, all your high-ranked people, which camp in the hedges in the cold day, but when the sun ariseth, they run off, and their place is not known where they are. Thy shepherds are asleep, O king of Assyria. Who are the shepherds? That's their leaders. That's the ones that should have gathered them. And what are they doing? They're sleeping. Thy nobles shall dwell in the dust. Thy people is scattered upon the mountains, and no man gathers them. If that's the case, then they're left to the predators. There is no healing of thy bruise. No healing of thy bruise. It will not get better. Thy wound is grievous. All that hear the bruit of thee shall clap hands. At last, Nineveh has fallen. Clap hands over thee, for upon whom hath not the wickedness passed continually. Every nation hated Nineveh because of their cruelty, and they used their cruelty to seduce you to be a part of their allies. The crossroads. We'd become allies. Why? Because we didn't want to be killed. Revelation addressed this same subject in 2:10. It says, be thou faithful unto death, and I'll give you a crown of life. All I've got to do is be faithful unto death. Somebody says, you either be seduced by this thing or we're going to kill you. All the threat can do is buy your ticket home. And that's what needs to be said. To any that would seduce us in that fashion, thanks for buying my ticket home. Because all that life is about is preparing to go to heaven. That's it. The bottom line on life is preparing to go to heaven. I thought it was more than that. Oh, there's periphery for your happiness. Maybe children, maybe nice job. That's periphery for your personal happiness. All that life is about is preparing to go to heaven. Are you prepared? There is a God who will vindicate his righteousness. Don't place any faith in, well, a good God should never destroy men. That reflects having never read about that good God. The good God has always punished unrighteousness. Always. We're going back to BC, all the way through AD, and the good God has always punished unrighteousness. That tells me what I want for me. I want me to be as righteous as I can be. If you're subject to the invitation of Jesus, we ask you to come as we stand together and sing.